Howdy ho, I'm Mauve, and welcome to my 7th YouTube video. We are still on a roll. I have with you today another turning my dreams into a story prompt because I had one in my drafts that I found and I looked at it again and it was another dream that I was thinking about. Honestly, could be like a children's book this time. With the last one, it was more like fantasy with, the lighthouse. I think it could make like a good novel, but with this one, considering what I think the morals of the story or the dream was essentially, I think it could make a good children's book. It definitely has some personal anecdotes, so I think it'll be fun to dive into that. But before we get started, I want to let you guys know that I am still rearranging things on my Patreon to try and make it just more appealing in general. And I'm thinking if maybe I get like, I don't know, $105 tiers, or just, I don't know, maybe just like 100 in general. I'm thinking that I might do a physical tier reward for like probably like $5 and up. And what I'm thinking about is either trying to do a monthly sticker club, just because I have been looking for work and stickers are expensive apparently. I've been looking up how to make them and they're very expensive. So either a sticker club, or because I have a lot of beads and I love making jewelry, I could send out bracelets. But more on that at a different time. Now, today's topic, as I said, is yet another dream video, and this one I call Little Lost Girl. So, how about I dive in and dissect this dream for you? Now, one of the most prominent first parts of that I remember that I had written down about this dream is that she went everywhere in a flying teacup. Right here, I'm drawing out the two characters that I remembered the most of, and you see, I kind of explore their designs a little bit further. The girl, I remember thinking of her as kind of like an Alice sort of like stereotype. I don't know if stereotype's the right word, but it's like trope. That's what it is. She's like an Alice trope. She is a curious little child, a little too curious for her own good, and she wanders off a lot. And I think in terms of if this were to be a children's book, it probably, considering the themes of it, it would more be of like a children's book for adults, maybe. um, and you'll understand when I get to the other character. But I don't have a name for her. But for right now, I'm just gonna call her Alice because that is the trope I'm going with. And Alice finds herself in a very much a predicament with the places that she goes to. She wanders off, of course, and stumbles into areas and places that she didn't even know could exist and probably shouldn't exist, or she shouldn't be allowed to be there at the very least. Little Alice here is very charismatic. She loves making friends, and she's also very confident in herself and knows when to say no. And she knows when she is getting a little too pushed around. She is a child, though, so, she is not without her faults as a child with being a little too naive for her own good. If I remember with my notes for this dream were all over the place because in reality it was three or so dreams just all happening at once. I think that's how it happens sometimes with, when I'm going to bed, probably with a lot of things on my mind, is that I'll have multiple dreams, and of course that happens with everyone, but I remember multiple dreams that I have in one night. Sometimes it's more concrete because I can kind of weave them all together and they make kind of sense to me in that way. Other times they're like the one where Little Lost Girl is coming from, where it was incomprehensible and I had to look through my notes multiple times to understand if some of the aspects were for this dream or if it was for one of the other dreams that I had in the same night. In fact, I will recite to you my list that I had written down for this particular night. So it starts off with girl in a flying teacup. Watched a bonfire destroy her home via gasoline line running through the city and eventually catching a train on fire that ran past her house. Living with her grandparents. Called 911 when her parents tried to rob her. Then a different girl in a headband in some old broken down house without parents, which I think might be for Alice, in her way, way too small bathroom. 147 was a number that kept popping up for some reason. Gold sculpture bowl thing that I stole. Singing. Contest for singers. Uh, I will get onto the rest of this notes because we're about to come up with the other half of this story. Now, the second part of Little Lost Girl and why it could make a good-ish moral story, but also it might be a little too much to be an actual children's story, is the fact that little Alice here actually winds up in the land of the dead. You see where I'm going now. In my dream, to finish off that list for everything that was going on, is now I'm in the land of the dead as Alice, try to escape, but one security guard snakes essentially stop me. I didn't draw the snakes this time, and I wanted to do an illustration of that, but I did not have time, so another time I'll probably put it on Patreon. Managed to leave, but I'm constantly hunted down by snakes. Witch with long neck and giant sun hat that granted life every day. And so I took this when I was sketching up what would what would essentially appear as the main antagonist is actually an ally of Alice. I've chosen to give her the name Dame of the Dead, and in my eyes, if this was supposed to be like an older kind of kid story about the dangers of wandering off and getting into trouble that you should not be, is that she was considered a good Samaritan of someone who does her job and she has rules in place such as, Dame of the Dead. If you die, you can't go back to life. That's kind of not how that works. In this iteration, though, I like to see it as with her granting life every day, it's more so she either gives people a second chance to, if someone comes to them in time, they can be revived, because there's a lot of people in real life who claim to have died or have medically died and then come back to life before. And in a more mythological sense, I kind of see it as her allowing people to be reincarnated, either for karma or because they were a good person and she wanted to give them another shot at life. Something of that sort. But I see her in this story coming off, of course, as first as a villain. Someone, whenever we associate a ruler over the dead, we either see them as this all merciful being or this really cruel, like, unkind person. And I like to think that she is just a stern older lady who does her job well and does not let anyone to affect her doing her job well. And this is actually where it got interesting for me in terms of character design, because I took a lot of inspiration from old fashion sketches, like specifically these Dior illustrations of dresses, and also this one artist that I kind of fell in love with while I was searching for more references. I think it's like Jean. I'm not gonna try and say the last name, even though it looks simple. I'm just not gonna try. It's either Jean or John. I don't know. But this person's artwork was just so beautiful. And when I looked at my notes, witch with a long neck and a giant sun hat, it reminded me of this certain type of style of dress. I don't know what time era to assign it. Unlike the last video where it was very clear that this was like 1910, 1920s ish. This one, I don't know. It's given old. It's given old vibes as well. This was definitely in the period of my life when I was very much watching old westerns and shit like that. But with long neck and giant sun hat, those were two factors that just made me immediately think of the really old fashion sketches with, the women with impossibly long proportions that, they're not so good in terms of that's what an actual person looks like. But in terms of art, it is an art form. And I think she would be very much someone who looks like one of those. So that's where I pulled a lot of my illustrations from. I know that I wanted her face to be primarily like obscured for the most part. I do draw like a close up of what I think her face could look like, but I think it would be something that you would never see, as the Dame of the Dead wishes to, remain, I don't know. I guess the Dame of the Dead wishes to remain anonymous. This one that I'm drawing right here was probably one of my favorites. They're all my favorites because I love silhouettes that just show so much character. I love mixing and matching silhouettes especially. And also, I am a huge sucker for puffy sleeves that cuff at the wrists. I don't know why. It is my favorite silhouette. You can never take away my puffy sleeve from me. No one can. It's mine. But yes, in terms of the story, I see it going as Alice, I don't know, falls down a hole, maybe starting it up as like a classic retelling of Alice in Wonderland, like maybe it jukes you out like that. I think that would be funny. So maybe it starts that way. She falls down a hole, thinks she's in Wonderland, but in actuality, she's in the land of the dead. And it is implied that she is not alive anymore. And so she spends this whole adventure trying to escape, but obviously it's not working. And I don't know if I would want her to grasp the reality of her situation, or for that to happen, when she's like grown up. Maybe she realizes that she did that. I think for the sake of her being a child, of course, I don't think I would have her grasp the reality of her situation. But I do think it would be implied that everyone else does. Well, I mean, of course they would, but you know what I mean. So, of course, she meets the Dame of the Dead, and she's very enamored with her. She's a very pretty lady. And I think the Dame would take an interest in Alice because, she doesn't like when children come down. She rather prefer that they stay out of her realm, though she knows she can't help it sometimes. And so I don't know what would cause her to bring Alice back. Maybe it could be, as I said, Alice is very charming and very curious, very smart girl. So I think it could, maybe she challenges the Dame to a game of some sort. Which, of course, I'd like to think the Dame is all for that sort of thing. She loves, a lot of times people try to like, oh, let me bet a chess match against you and you'll grant me my life again. She loves when people make her have to, she loves when people have to earn it. So I think maybe Alice would, I don't know. I keep saying I don't know because I really didn't think of this before I started recording, so now I'm in the process of having to think about all of this while I'm recording, so it's not that great. So, I think Alice would challenge her to a game that maybe Alice even made up in order for her to go back to being alive. I think, yeah. I'll definitely have to think on this story a little more just for maybe future things, but it's such a process, and that's what I love about filming these YouTube videos, is that it's such like an interesting process that you guys get to come with me and watch how I figure these things out. So I think it could be a fun, like, just little exercise in maybe comics. I don't think this is really something I would hone in on. I've had this idea for a while. I've always really wanted to tackle on the image of the Dame herself, because I've had such a struggle trying to figure out how I would portray her from like my dream, because it was such a specific image in my dream. But it was a really fun exercise to go back to these sorts of images and illustrations with a certain silhouette and try to replicate that in my style and try to think of like outfits that she would wear. I think she's a very lanky girl, of course. And I have just one more image to show you guys. And I don't normally do backgrounds in this method of lassoing, but I was running out of time a little bit. And I did not remember. I actually didn't I did not remember much of the landscapes of that particular dream with, Little Lost Girl. I usually do, which is why this one was like very interesting, but I think it's just because it was very vibey and moody, because my dreams have two modes. It's either super highly complex detailed backgrounds, like the one I literally had like a couple nights ago that I plan to do sometime as well, probably not next week, but I had a super detailed dream where the main focus was the backgrounds and like the environment. Or it could be like this one, where it's a blank space, in space, with vibes. And that's all I got is just its vibes. And it's really funny. But I think for Alice and Little Lost Girl, the one of the only landscapes, environments that I remember was this room. And I've been drawing in black and white a lot recently because it's just been way easier on my workload. But it was very colorful. I think the tiles, there's only lines right here, but they were tiles, and I remember them being very brightly colored. And I think this room was like a waiting room of sorts. As I said, I haven't thought too much about it, and I wish I kind of thought more about it before I started the video. But this is probably an area in the Land of the Dead that you wait in, probably like before the river Styx or something. It's coming a lot from Greek mythology, because I love Greek mythology a lot. But that does it for this week's video. I'm really excited to be working on more ideas. I'm hoping to make another real-time video soon. I went back home recently, and I got a lot more of my art supplies for journaling. So I might do a little flip through, and I might do some more real-time things to get some more variety on this channel already. With that being said, thank you for joining me on another week of testing out this YouTube thing. I cannot thank you guys enough for my support. It means so much to see your guys' like comments every day. I keep going back to all my videos just to read them because I'm so like shocked. So, thank you so much to my subscribers for making this like a reality. It's been really, really fun, and thank you so much to my patrons. They include Octopus Lion, Rain Falling Into Your Coffers, and Elliot McNeil. I cannot thank you guys enough for your support. And that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for joining me. I cannot stop saying thank you. Sorry. I have nothing else to say. Goodbye.